Back in the day, I used to play a lot of Flash games. Newgrounds, Armor Games, and Congregate were my home. I have fond memories of this time, but every so often I wonder if the games I played as a kid were actually good or if I just thought they were because it's all I really had access to. So today we're going to be looking at a game that I remember very well that was released all the way back in 2010, Road of the Dead by Evil Dog. Evil Dog was one of the top dogs, no pun intended, in both the music and gaming sections of Newgrounds. If you were an active user of the site, you probably knew who he was, and I definitely remember his stuff being a cut above the rest, and it looks like the community agrees. The overwhelming majority of his content has an average user rating between 4 and 5 stars. When it comes to Flash games, developers are usually pretty limited in what they can do. This is because Flash itself is fairly bare bones as far as programming languages go, but furthermore, since most Flash games are browser-based, they simply can't utilize the computer's hardware to its fullest. Generally speaking, only low-intensity games are really playable in Flash, and it comes down to the developers to find clever ways to work around that. Here's the thing about Road of the Dead. It's a first-person driving game, and I don't think I've ever seen another Flash game manage to do that, or at least not well. It's also set in a zombie apocalypse, which is pretty par for the course. Newgrounds in particular seemed to love zombie games at the time. So without further ado, let's get into the game. When you start up the story mode, you're greeted by this lovely little Flash animation. Man, this really is peak 2010 Newgrounds. You'd see these types of animations in Flash games all the time, though they usually sucked a lot worse than this one. The idea is simple. You're a mechanic in Evans City and the zombie apocalypse happens. You have a car and you need to get the hell out of there without being killed by zombies or the military who are trying to quarantine the city. The highway you'll be driving down is just a straight line the whole way, and naturally there are zombies and debris everywhere. The way the game works is that there's two ways you can die. Either your car breaks or you, the driver, dies. It's almost like you have two separate health pools. Whenever you collide with pretty much anything, your engine is damaged, and whenever something like a bullet or a clinging zombie hits you, your health is damaged. The game has a fairly lenient checkpoint system where after a certain distance traveled, your progress is saved. When you die, you can use up the road points or RP you've built up. RP is gained mainly through two means: making progress, the further you get the more RP you gain, and killing enemies, be they zombies, soldiers, or helicopters. More on them later. RP will allow you to upgrade various aspects of your car, from the bumper, which increases your engine durability, to the wheels, which makes the car move more responsibly. And you can even buy a handgun so you can shoot the enemies that are clinging to the hood of your car. From a design standpoint, the game is actually fairly simple, albeit clever and well executed. Basically, the road is filled with a bunch of crap and you have to keep driving without dying. As you progress further and further, new obstacles are introduced. At the start of the game, you really only have to deal with zombies, civilians who cost you RP if you ram into them, stationary obstacles such as cars, and oil slicks which temporarily messes with your handling. But pretty soon you'll be dealing with spike strips which will damage your tires, soldiers who will shoot at you if you face them head on, damaging your windshield and then your body, and you'll even get carpet bombed from time to time as the military gets more and more desperate. So as the game goes on, the core gameplay loop stays the same, it's just that you have to deal with more and more crap. Okay, so now I want to talk about the helicopters I mentioned earlier. This is yet another obstacle the game will throw at you, and it functions kind of like a pseudo-boss, though it comes at random intervals as opposed to it being a scripted event. So the helicopter will fly in front of you and slowly track your position. Every so often it'll fire off its machine guns, and later on in the game it'll sometimes fire a rocket. The way you deal with it is to bring it to the side of the highway and make it smack into 3 road signs, at which point it'll fly away. Yeah, the military in this game aren't very good at their jobs. I have to say, the helicopter stands out in a negative way to me, but not because it's bad. I'd say as far as enemies in Flash games go, the helicopter's actually pretty decent, but overall it just feels underwhelming. It's more of a nuisance than anything else once you figure out how to deal with it. Also, due to the random nature of how things are laid out along the highway, a lot of times killing it comes down to RNG. Sometimes a car will spawn right in front of a road sign and you'll have to take some collision damage if you want to dirt the helicopter. And on a pretty frequent basis, there will be instances where you need to take some gunfire if you want the helicopter to hit the next road sign. Overall, this enemy, which should have been the highlight of the experience, was just annoying whenever it showed up. One feature of the game that I thought was really neat was how it plays with your visibility. As you hit zombies, soldiers, and civilians, your windshield will get all bloody, making it harder to see where you're going. You can just run into a barrel of water or use your windshield wipers to clean it off, but the whole point is that it makes it harder to see in the chaos that is Evans City, and you have to actually take actions to rectify it. And the windshield itself plays into this too. As it gets more and more damaged, most commonly by gunfire, it'll get more and more cracked and broken, which as you might imagine makes it harder to see. One neat thing that Evil Dog did was give you the option of punching out your windshield, which will obviously clear up your vision. There will be no more cracks, and any blood splatters will just leave a few simulated droplets on what would have been the camera lens if this was live action. But honestly, these droplets don't affect visibility at all. In exchange for this newfound visibility, you prematurely get rid of the last thing protecting you from taking bullets directly. I really like the concept, but I think it could have been executed better. This may just be my experience, but I didn't find that the cracked windshield ever affected visibility enough to mess with my ability to play effectively. So the ability to punch the window out was completely useless to me, even though it's a really cool idea to implement some risk versus reward gameplay. That being said, I do think the windshield does do some neat risk versus reward stuff when it comes to the clinging enemies. See, if you aren't moving fast enough when you hit a zombie or soldier, it'll jump onto the hood of your car, obstructing vision and attacking you through the windshield. There are also mutant zombies, which will always cling to you no matter how fast you're going. There are two ways to deal with this. You can bump into things to shake them off, which is how you'll have to deal with it at the start of the game, and you can also purchase a handgun in the upgrade menu to shoot them for an instant kill. But here's the thing, if your windshield is still up, shooting a clinging enemy will destroy it. So if you've got a clinging enemy at the start of your run, you probably want to shake them off. Well, if you get one when your windshield is already pretty fucked up, it might be best to just fire away. This is especially true for the mutated zombies because they're a lot harder to shake off than all the other enemies, and you really don't want them hitting you. And again, I have to point out that this is all just a piece of the puzzle. The whole gameplay loop is about navigating the chaos. Things get thrown at you left and right, and you'll have to deal with multiple things constantly. So when you have to make a choice as to whether or not to sacrifice your windshield to shoot off a clinging zombie, you might also have to choose whether or not to take some gunfire in order to damage a helicopter, while also trying to dodge a carpet bombing. It gets pretty hectic. It wasn't really as hard as I remember it being, but then again, I was in middle school when the game was released, so I probably had yet to get good. But overall, Road to the Dead is very exciting and fun to play, and I'm glad I went back into it. And now, even though I hate to end the gameplay segment on a negative note, because I really did enjoy it, I have to briefly mention the other game modes. Highway to Hell is the game's hard mode, but honestly it didn't really feel like that much of a difficulty increase, especially since you start out with all your upgrades, which means the early sections of the game are easier than what you're used to, so it's a little boring. And keep in mind that you have to beat the normal mode to even start the hard mode, so it's not like you can just jump right in from square one. Dead on Time is a time trial mode where you have 30 seconds but you gain more time whenever you kill an enemy. Pretty straightforward. And Police State is another endless mode where there are just a ton of military obstacles all around. Lots of soldiers, spike strips, bombs, etc. Overall, the game modes are nice to have, but they're pretty underwhelming. Once I beat the normal mode, I didn't really feel the desire to really dive into the other modes. So while I had a ton of fun in the game, that part was kind of disappointing. On a technical level, the game runs pretty smoothly on modern browsers and systems. I noticed no hitches, stutters, lags, or crashes in my most recent playthrough. You might expect that out of a 10-year-old game on modern hardware and software, but you'd be surprised. Since a lot of Flash games are made by amateur developers, some of them do have issues born out of inexperience, and also most of them are just one person doing everything. But Road to the Dead does a good job of holding itself together, and that's commendable. Even though Evil Dog is a musician, the soundtrack for Road to the Dead wasn't actually done by him, it was done by Symphony of Spectres. Evil Dog's music is mostly metal and punk. Symphony of Spectres gave Road to the Dead this orchestral soundtrack that's simultaneously eerie and epic. It's been playing in the background of this video, so you can make your own judgments, but I personally feel that it sets the tone for the game so well. I honestly think the music is one of the highlights of the experience. And yet another thing I have to mention is the voiceover work. There's pretty much constant radio chatter by the military as you're playing. Whenever you pass a checkpoint, there'll be stuff with story significance, though once that's over, it'll be filler and call lines for when they deploy certain obstacles such as carpet bombings and helicopters. I have to say, the voice acting in this game is actually really good. Seriously, it's better in Road to the Dead than in some of the games I've actually paid for. In conjunction with the soundtrack, the voice work in the game does such a great job at setting the atmosphere and making you really feel like the stakes are high as you continually hear the military getting more and more desperate to stop you as they're simultaneously getting overrun by zombies.
Checkpoint 7 to base. The target has gone beyond our checkpoint, but now we're overrun by zombies. We're moving out.
Fall back to the Adze River with the other units. Now!
Yes, sir. General Sherman to air support. Head over to Highway 65 for a carpet bombing on the target's location. Roger that.
Unit 5 to base. We're currently sieged by a huge crowd of zombies. We'll try to circle around the river, but we've lost a lot of men.
Unit 5, don't fight them. Just get your ass to the river, ASAP.
Yes, sir.
These guys did such a good job here, and they deserve all the credit in the world. So in conclusion, what do I think? Does Road to the Dead hold up in 2020? Is it still worth playing a decade later? Absolutely. The game is so much fun. I enjoyed the crap out of it, and you can just go online and play it at any time. For a Flash game, Road to the Dead is pretty much top tier. I'd highly recommend trying it out, even 10 years post-release. There will be a link in the description, go play it. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed this look at a classic Flash game. I may actually do more of these, so if you know of any old Flash games you'd like me to check out, let me know in the comments below. Also let me know if you think it's worth doing this same kind of thing for Road to the Dead 2. As always, leave a like if you enjoyed, comment if you want to make the algorithm love me, and subscribe if you want to see more. Follow me on Twitter at AdsTweets, yeah, I finally updated my Twitter handle, for updates and memes, and follow me on Twitch for the occasional Beat Saber stream to help me lose weight. I'm currently down 8 pounds with much more to come. Well, with all that being said, thank you all for watching, and I'll see you next time.
Hit the road, Jack, and don't you come back no more, no more, no more.